Welcome to this week's Confidence Picks. It is week 10 already, if you can believe it. But the buys are over. Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace, by the way. A full slate of Big Ten games. Everybody's in action now the rest of the way. So where are we at heading into the stretch run?
It was a weird week. So you got Penn State, missed on Maryland, got Ohio State, Minnesota. That's your 2 spot, and Nebraska at your 1 spot. That stupid scoop and score towards the end of that Nebraska-Purdue game screwed you. And so you missed your bonus pick. I got Penn State over Indiana and basically nothing else except for Ohio State over Wisconsin, which I put in my 1 slot and probably shouldn't have done that. But it was a close game for a while, kind of like I was predicting. And then the one time I trust freaking James Franklin, man. The one time I think, hey,
James Franklin knows the number.
Yes.
Yes.
The one time I do that, I get utterly burned in a game that Indiana should have won. Should have won that game.
Yep.
But they just puckered at the end. I'm running the ball 3 times. You play to win the game. They were not playing to... What did you think you were going to be able to do? Go into overtime against Penn State and beat them in overtime? No. You go and win the game there. Goodness. Anyway, I actually lost a point this week. I went from 402 to 401. You gained, 8, 10, 11. You gained 4 points, but I still lead after last week's big week for me. I still lead 401 to 393 going into, as you said, week 10.
You are lucky about that late touchdown by Purdue. Otherwise, this thing would be basically tied.
Yep.
But there's going to be a lot of variance down the stretch here now with everybody playing. So I think there's some teams in some tough spots this week that I had a hard time making some of these picks. But let's start with the easiest one, Michigan with the 32-point spread against really a beleaguered, beaten-up Purdue team. Michigan's, I'm guessing, might be a tad ornery after what's transpired over the last 2 weeks of its bye. And wouldn't mind maybe making a statement on prime time. My 6-point game is Ohio State over Rutgers, but there's some reports out there. Remember Kyle McCord was limping around last week? Some reports out there of him in a walking boot. In Columbus this week. So, and Rutgers' defense is legit. And I don't know that Ohio State's offense is explosive enough now to just go out there and avoid getting into a mosh pit with them. We'll see. I've got Wisconsin with a 5-point over Indiana. I got to tell you, I don't feel good about this at all. I just wasn't sure where else to put the 5-point game. Wisconsin, very beat up. Indiana played its rear end off last week. Coming home. Wisconsin might be without Braylon Allen, already with a backup quarterback, but there wasn't a lot of other places where I was more confident. I'm not that. Penn State, it's a terrible spot for them.
Only a 10-point favorite.
Yep.
That's really weird to me.
And you didn't play well last week. Yep. You've got a look-ahead spot. Your whole season's on the line next week with Michigan coming to town. And the only reason I didn't go with Maryland here, the series history by Penn State is just ownership. Mm-hmm. Like, and they don't just like own the series. Like they win like most of these games. Like we housed you. We pulled your pants down. So I'll go 4 points on Penn State. I mentioned on Bigger 10, PJ Fleck has not played well. His teams have not done well against Illinois. And I think that's reflected in a spread that's like a field goal or less. So I'll put 3 points on Minnesota. That's a bit of a hedge that I'm just not confident in them. I'm not confident in Iowa. It's just when you can dominate a team physically, but you're only up 10-3, 10-6, and you're one, mistake away from losing the game. There's so much variance there. So I'm going to go 2 on the Hawkeyes, and I'm going to put 1 on Nebraska on the road at Michigan State. They're clearly playing better football. Michigan State has not had a winless Big Ten campaign since 1958. Only time it's happened in school history, they didn't win a conference game during the year. I don't know where they're at pride-wise. I just don't know. And this, if you look at their schedule, this is probably, they got Indiana still, but they lost Indiana at home last year. Not a lot more spots for a win. This is their last winnable home game of the year. Do they go ahead and just say, hey, let's shoot our shot here? I don't know. And plus Nebraska's limited offensively too. Can you just tell I'm hedging on a lot of these games? I just a lot of variance. My bonus pick though, I want the smoke. I'm going Iowa Northwestern under 31. Under 31, Iowa at Northwestern. With the breeze coming off Lake Michigan, Wrigley Field in the weird dimensions, on grass, cold temps. Two teams. Northwestern can't run it at all. They can only throw it. It's hard to throw the ball on Iowa. Iowa can't throw it at all. All right, so I think this is the definition of rock fight. I'll take Iowa at Northwestern under 31.
Yeah, can't argue with that latter play there. The top of my card is similar to yours. Michigan over Purdue at the 7 spot. 6, I've got Ohio State over Rutgers. But the report about McCord, which I had not heard of, that's a cause for concern. That I don't know. That might ignite some other guys to really step up in that game. Who knows? I've got Wisconsin over Indiana at the 5 spot. Indiana is just a peculiar team, just a very odd team.
Their coach is very peculiar and odd.
I could not believe. I don't know if it was good schemes or busted coverage from Penn State, those 2 long touchdown passes. I think the second one for sure, well, the first one was a really good play by the wide receiver. The second one for sure was the quarterback just noticed, hey, this guy isn't covered. I'm going to go throw it to him. It was the same guy who got the first one. Just a very odd team, but I think Wisconsin, I think they should be able to handle them. Also, I've got under 3.5 Indiana wins on my at plus money on my sitting in my account. So there's also that. Penn State over Maryland. I considered making Penn State minus 10 my bonus bet just because that seemed weird to me, but because it seemed weird, I decided to stay away from that. I think they should still handle Maryland, but something funky is going on, I believe, with Penn State. I noticed last week, they were favored at first by 32 over Indiana. That got bet down in Indiana's favor. They closed as 31. Now it's only a point, but still something. Somebody knew something to make that line move by a point. I don't know. Again, we're talking to the 30s, so who knows? In the 3, I've got Nebraska over Michigan State. I think Nebraska is just the far more motivated team than Michigan State. I think that's where you need to start and stop your analysis. Still way too many turnovers for Nebraska. If they just play pretty clean football, I think they should be able to beat Michigan State. Nebraska's offense is still terrible, but I just think don't step on your own tail and you'll be fine. I've got Illinois over Minnesota. Now, Minnesota was fairly impressive last week. Again, that was against a team in Michigan State that I actually picked to win. And again, as I just said, I don't know what they're playing for. I don't know what their motivation is. So I think Minnesota is due to drop one at some point. You said as well, Illinois playing Minnesota. PJ Fleck has not had a great amount of success. And I just think they're due to drop one here. I don't think Minnesota is that great at the end of the day. One, I've got Iowa over Northwestern. Iowa might not score a point offensively. It might be 3 points offensively. They're really going to have.
How about a 3-2 game at Wrigley Field when that's fitting, right?
I love that. Yeah. Let's do it. 3-2. Gotta hit a 3-run. No. It's not a 3-run bomb.
It's a 3-run field goal.
It's 3 separate suicide squeezes versus, I don't know, a double that scores 2 runs, something like that. And then I've got I said last week, I hate laying these huge numbers. I'm sorry, that should be Purdue. Michigan minus 32 over Purdue. I hate laying these huge numbers. I'm just pissed that James Franklin did this to me last week. So I'm going Michigan minus 32 over Purdue. For the reason that you just said, I think Michigan is going to play the disrespect card for the rest of the season. And that starts this Saturday. So I've got Michigan covering that huge number against Indiana.
I mean, I could very well see this be 35-0 at the half.
Yep.
But the final score is 35-7 because Jimmy's like, man, we got Penn State next week. How many walk-ons want a piece of the Boilermakers in the second half?
Even your walk-ons were scoring points against Minnesota.
That is true.
Is Minnesota better than Purdue?
That's a good point. All right, that'll do it for this week's picks. We'll find out how we did, and that's why they play the games. And this is now the fun and yet bittersweet time of the year. The marquee matchups are here, but that also means that the end is nigh in more ways than one. Back again next week right here on the channel. See you then.